Hey, what's going on Facebook Live? I wanted to do a quick live stream here. Just got home from work and I wanted to cover some of the election news and some other things that matter to me. I don't know if you guys have seen this website from the state. Let's see, let's jump right in here to this. It's the ballot return statistics from compared 2020 to 2016. And if you take a look here, 7 days out from the election in 2016, there was 1.2 million ballots received. And today, 7 days out from the election, there's 2.5 million ballots received. That's a lot. That's a lot, quite a bit of ballots. 52% of the vote has already turned in their ballots. And I don't know if anybody's seen the Project Veritas articles that are out right now in the news, but they've been doing some great undercover journalism and covering these Texas ballot chasers. And they've done a couple of things in Minnesota recently, and they've got some great stuff on their website. But they go into detail covering these ballot chasers and the election fraud that's happening all over the country. We've all seen this. If anybody is familiar with the 2004 election here in Washington State, where Dino Rossi won the governor race here in Washington State, and then they had recount after recount, and by the third recount he lost by 129 votes. They were finding ballot boxes in trunks of cars and things like that. And anybody who thinks that the election vote by mail is totally secure is just lying to themselves. You know, it's the same people that think the post office is great and they're in denial about the failures of the post office. I used to sell iPhone cases on eBay, and I would see, if I mailed out 100 iPhone cases, I would see at least 10 of them that didn't make it to the customer in the end. Sometimes they would go. I would be mailing an iPhone case from Utah to California, and it would go to the East Coast, and then it would go down to the South, and then it would finally get to the buyer in California a week late, and I'd get a negative feedback from it. The post office has always been terrible. You know, it's really kind of dependent on the service that you use, but anybody who thinks that the post office is just this great service is just lying to themselves. And these same people would claim, the election was hacked or Russian interference and stuff in the 2016 election, and now they're all in on mail-in voting all of a sudden because of the pandemic. And you can see here on Project Veritas, this lady, just this one person says that she can completely honestly say that I'm bringing at least 7,000 votes to the polls. When you think about 2016, when President Trump won the election, there was a Washington Post article that talks about how between 4 different swing states or battleground states, there was 80,000 ballots, 80,000 votes that really gave the election to President Trump. And so if you think about dropping in a couple of people like this lady that go and harvest ballots, that can really swing an entire election. And I'm not going to go in full detail into the article here from Project Veritas, but we know how this works out here in Washington State, especially from the 2004 election that happened here. And that's why I'm so frustrated with the King County Republican Party, the fact that these guys have zero events. They have no upcoming events on their page. And you'd think with such a contested race, or, finally we have a race here in Washington State that has so much energy behind the candidates. We have Lauren Culp running, and we have Joshua Freed as the official write-in candidate for Republicans for the lieutenant governor position, and they have no events on their page, which is super frustrating. If you look at my Reopen Washington page, I've had the write-in Joshua Freed for lieutenant governor event added to the page for well over a month, and if you look at all of the, just in my own campaign, we have flag-waving events all over the place, and that all of the candidates that were officially endorsed by the King County Republican Party, they've got campaign sign-waving events. They've got, on-the-ground events all over the place for all these different candidates in King County that are endorsed by the King County Republican Party, like Jeb Brewer or Kyle Lebedev or Beth Dariansing, any one of these candidates, they've got all kinds of events, and you'd think that the King County Republican Party would be all in on having these events, on their sharing these events on their official Facebook page, but they don't have any events listed. And on their website, kcgop.org, they don't even have the election day, November 3rd, on their official calendar. They have 0 events from April all the way till now for the 1st legislative district, the district that I'm in. But they don't have any events on there. They're not sharing any events. They're not really giving any support to the candidates they're running. And it's really disappointing when you think about something that happened, the stuff that happened in 2004 when Dino Rossi won the governor race and then lost the 3rd recount by 129 votes, and then they just gave it up from there. So that's kind of frustrating, but really interesting to see the increased turnout here in Washington State, where we had 1.2 million ballots turned in 7 days to the election, 7 days in advance of the election in 2016, and now we've got 2.5 million cumulative ballots received so far in the election. 52% of the electorate has voted already, and the energy out there is amazing. I wish we had more information than just what's here on the ballot return statistics website, but this is really surprising. The amount of turnout, the amount of energy that we've had here is really amazing, and I think that we have the best chance here of making some real changes here in Washington State that we've ever had. This is the year that we can turn Washington red. I was out doorbelling in North Kirkland, the little sliver of Kirkland that's in my district, on Sunday with Dr. Art Coday, who's running for the state Senate. And we actually ran into quite a few houses that had already voted, but we ran into several houses that hadn't voted, and several undecided voters, and also some voters that were going to vote Republican down the line, and they hadn't heard about us. So there is still a lot of people out there that have not voted. So if you know anybody that hasn't voted, I would encourage you to text your friends, call your friends and neighbors, send out emails to people in your address book, and really try and get the vote out. Some updates, some things that happened to me. I had somebody comment on one of my posts and say that their neighbor had called them white trash for having a Trump sign or Trump flag in their yard, and I had tried to respond and said that I would happily take white trash over self-hating white guilt. But when I hit send on that comment, this was back on the 22nd or something of last week, I hit send on this comment, and I got a notification on Facebook immediately saying that I had a restriction or a strike on my account, and they didn't let me post this comment. So the algorithm caught this and would not allow me to respond to somebody in Reopen Washington with this comment. And they said that if I did something like this again, then that went against their global community standards, then my account could be restricted. And then on Sunday, I streamed this Antifa meetup in downtown Bellevue Park, and it got a lot of action on my Facebook page. It's had like 2,700 interactions with almost 2,000 views on this stream, and I got a lot of trolling after posting this. Obviously, it got some traction on Facebook, but shortly after I did this stream, Facebook went back in time, and they went back to a post that I had made over a month ago in Reopen Washington, so a page that was not my campaign page. They went back in time, and they found a meme that I had shared that was, and I'll spare you the details. It probably wasn't in the best taste, the meme, but it was a raised fist clutching a dildo that said "burn, loot, murder, just a bunch of jack-offs." And I've seen it all over Facebook. That's where I found the meme, and I had shared it in Reopen Washington, and they went back and struck my account for that meme and then put a restriction. I have multiple restrictions on my account, and they said I cannot post or comment for 24 hours, and I couldn't go live for 30 days on my campaign Facebook page, a totally different page than where I had posted that meme. And so they restricted my account. I can't advertise for 30 days. I haven't done any advertising anyway, so that's ridiculous. But the fact that they restricted my campaign page from streaming I think that has nothing to do with community standards. I think it was a cubicle warrior in Facebook somewhere that had seen me streaming the Antifa meetup and mocking those guys, and they put this strike on my account and limited my account from doing anything. And so I ended up tweeting out to Facebook, at Facebook on Twitter, and telling them this is election interference. And I shared this, and I filed an appeal on Facebook. And then before the 24 hours was up, they actually removed the restrictions, and they sent me a notice saying that they'd made a mistake. And they had a little green check mark, and they said they'd put the meme back into Reopen Washington and removed the restrictions on my account. So clearly, that even though that meme might have been in poor taste, which I'm sure it was, but I found it personally funny, and a lot of other people did, somebody went in that didn't like it and didn't like what I was doing and put restrictions on my account, censoring my page and censoring my campaign page from doing any streaming or any posting. I couldn't post, I couldn't comment, I couldn't even like or react to anybody's anything else, and they totally restricted my account. And I thought that was a complete overstep, especially 1 week out from the election, when I'm trying to do regular streams and things on my campaign page to get traffic to the page. So I thought that was kind of ridiculous. And then Facebook, who claims to be this platform, and they've got protections from Section 230, for being a platform and not a publisher, but they said my page, Reopen Washington, is at risk of being unpublished. This platform is going to unpublish my page because they don't like the stuff that I'm sharing on there. So most of the articles that I post on there, within a day or two, they end up getting fact-checked, and then you read the fact-check, and a lot of times it has nothing to do with what's in the actual article. It's kind of ridiculous. The censorship on Facebook is getting way out of hand, in my opinion. But I wanted to share this article from The Stranger. It says, Facebook is the reason we have Lauren Culp. And it talks about, at first Lauren Culp's campaign looked like a scam to sell copies of his cop memoir. And then he won the second place in Washington State gubernatorial primary, beating out a Republican state senator, who's really an older guy that walks with a cane, and I don't think he had the energy to run for governor personally. A well-heeled, churchy mayor, obviously that's Joshua Freed, and an establishment-backed moderate, that would be Dr. Raul Garcia, who, the minute he was endorsed by the King County GOP, a 10-year-old video was put onto YouTube of this guy getting a DUI in his Porsche. So I don't think that guy had any chance, really. But and the state's most famous grifter, Tim Eyman, that's, obviously The Stranger is going to do nothing but a hit piece on Republicans. But I found it really interesting how they frame this, and they say that his identities do combine to form a sort of mech warrior of right-wing victimhood. He was a small business owner, and a cop, and a veteran, and a white guy who lives east of the mountains. If he were also a small landlord, he'd be the most victimized person to ever run for office in the state by GOP standards. But again, the other Republican candidates had compelling backgrounds too. And then they go through the article and they talk about how Culp's campaign manager, who was also the campaign manager for Donald Trump in the state of Oregon back in 2016, has really taken the battle to Facebook, and right now he has over 80,000 people following his Facebook page, and they talk about how Jay Inslee has over 150,000 people following his page, but it's been, he's obviously been a two-term governor, he's had a lot of time to build up that base. But they basically say that Facebook isn't doing enough to censor the things that are shared on not only Lauren Culp's page, but all of these different Facebook pages that are in support of Lauren Culp for governor. There's a whole bunch of pages that are independent of his campaign, and within those pages, they'll share news and things and memes that the Stranger finds offensive. And they wrap it up at the very end after covering some off-the-wall memes and some stuff about people who are anti-mask or that kind of thing. But they follow it up with at the very end of the article, they say, when they say that the state GOP, is sharing fear porn with this ad.
Our city's taken over by radicals.
And what's funny about this is in my stream where I was covering the Antifa rally, I walked past this guy right here in the jean jacket, and as I'm talking to the live stream, I'm saying that there's so many people, so many Bellevue police officers here at this rally that I don't think they're going to let the type of destruction that happens in Seattle, they're not going to let that happen in Bellevue. And the guy laughs and says, "Oh, destruction, give me a break." And the funny thing is, we've all seen it. We've seen the torched police cars. We've seen all the destruction and violence. We've seen the boarded up windows in downtown Seattle. And the stranger's in complete denial about all the damage and violence that happens as a result of these riots. And they call everybody protesters. That's another thing that is just ridiculous. These are not protesters. These are rioters, destructive rioters. And they say here at the end, "In the meantime, I never thought I'd say this before, but after Lauren Culp loses, can we please unplug Facebook and go back to the days of mainstream Republicans making bad dad jokes about traffic? Washington politics can't be just one side screaming about tyrants and the other side trying to follow expert advice on public health policy." How ridiculous, especially with the World Health Organization, who these guys tout as, the be-all and end-all of public health. The World Health Organization itself is against lockdowns. There's been numerous articles and mentions of this, that lockdowns are actually doing far more damage than the pandemic itself. And for these guys to say that it's not that only one side talking about tyrants, this is tyranny here in Washington State. And this is an attack on small business. It's an attack on working families. They have shut down the economy for anybody that doesn't work for big tech. And you know that if Jay Inslee wins this election, we will be locked down tighter than we were back during the initial stay home, stay healthy order that was over 7 months ago. And so the Stranger obviously is a completely biased newspaper. We know that. They're total trash. But I just found that hilarious. This whole article is a pretty good read, but it's pretty funny, and it's a good insight into how these people think. But I'm really hoping with all the turnout in this election that we are going to have some real change come into Washington State. And the last thing I wanted to cover is this. I posted a video back on October 20th of some campaign sign destruction in Mountain Lake Terrace. Mountain Lake Terrace has been a total war zone for campaign signs. I don't know what it is with Mountain Lake Terrace, but we've done a lot of campaigning in Mountain Lake Terrace. We distributed about 2,500 flyers in Mountain Lake Terrace, and I've been putting up signs there, constantly repairing damaged signs. And here's a sign that I had fixed and rehung in Mountain Lake Terrace, and I just drove by this sign right here today, and I've driven past it a couple times. It's been okay, but I drove past it again today, and it's now shredded into 5 pieces. So obviously the destruction hasn't stopped there, and a couple of my signs are cut in half, which has happened quite a bit in Mountain Lake Terrace. I've been taking those signs and then zip tying them, the two halves together, on chain link fences throughout the district. But the destruction and just the really attack on our campaign signs in Mountain Lake Terrace has been unreal. But that's all I wanted to talk about. Those are the things I wanted to cover on this stream. But if you haven't had a chance to, or if you haven't taken the chance, please like my Facebook page. It really helps get the word out to people within my district that maybe haven't voted yet. And Joshua Freed needs people to get the word out for his campaign. Joshua Freed's campaign is really an information campaign, an information war in the electoral warfare that is 2020 elections. Joshua Freed's campaign is all about getting information out, because on the ballot there's only 2 Democrats. As you know, we have a top 2 state, and the vote was split so much in the primary that we ended up with 2 Democrats on the ticket for lieutenant governor. And if you've seen how President Trump's agenda has been inhibited by Democrats in D.C., if we don't get anybody else in there except for Lauren Culp, if we don't change the House or the Senate in Washington State, then Lauren Culp's going to have a real tough time getting his agenda through. And so we need to have Joshua Freed in that lieutenant governor seat. So please write in Joshua Freed for lieutenant governor, but also share his campaign, share my campaign. We're in the last stretch here, the final stretch of the campaign, and we're going to need all of the help we can get here. So thanks for tuning in. These are the things I wanted to talk about for this election update, and be sure to like my page.